everyone, my name is Beatrice and I'm here to talk about how we can structure multi-robot probabilistic search as a mixed integer linear programming problem so we can take advantage of modern solvers techniques to find our desired solutions. So first of all, why do we care about this problem? We know that robots were first deployed at a disaster scene in the aftermath of 9/11 and many times since then. However, according to a 2016 survey, over 50% of robot failure is still due to human error. For example, the operator tries to multitask and ends up accidentally driving the robot off a path, resulting in this very confusing view that you can see here. Not only that, when the operator is overloaded, he tends to miss key information from the scene. For example, here on the right, you can see a partially buried watch, indicating that there might have been a victim there. But this cue was totally missed by the operator until weeks later when analyzing the collected data. So it's easy to understand why we are trying to make robots smarter so they can cooperate in a team setting even under uncertainty. High-level planning can help with first responder safety by sending robots to places that are too dangerous and improving overall team performance. Of course, such frameworks can also be useful in other applications, from surveillance to warehouse management. Now we understand why, let's formulate our problem. As the schematic illustrates, we don't know exactly where our target is, but we have a set of probabilities and we are trying to figure it out how to move our searchers in order to maximize the chances of finding the victim. Our goal is to find the target within a specified deadline, so we are performing an efficient search. We assume discrete time steps and abstract the known environment into a graph. We also assume our agents move at the same time. Since the target is not actively running away from us, nor communicating with us, we say he is non-adversarial. Finally, the team coordination can be explicit or implicit, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Within the multi-robot literature, this problem is known as multi-robot efficient search path planning, as coined by Hollinger in 2009. To formulate our path planning as an optimization problem, we define the belief vector. The first element of this vector is the probability of target capture within time t. All the other elements are the probability that the target is at vertex v at time t. So we seek a plan, or the optimal policy pi, that maximizes the chances of capture by the deadline, according to this cost function. Gamma here is a discount factor to make sure we prioritize earlier actions over later actions, since we want to find the target as soon as possible. And we subject this function to the belief update, which takes into account the current belief, the probabilistic motion of the target, encoded by matrix M, and the capture events encoded by matrices C, that relay the searcher's positions and the ability to detect the target. We now need to translate this formulation into a language that a MILP solver can understand. And as it turns out, we can formulate our path planning problem with only linear constraints and feed it to a solver. So we take our cost function and we create sets of constraints. For the agent path, to express their initial and current positions, enforce path consistency and takes into account their motion. For the target state, in the form of the belief entries and motion model, and capture events that relate the agent's positions with their ability to detect the target. That's where the sensor model comes in. For the actual constraints, we refer you to our paper. So we put all this information in our MILP model and feed it to a commercial solver, which then spits out a solution. We came up with 3 sets of MILP models for multi-robot search, ranging from a simple sample vertex capture and perfect sensing to arbitrary capture range and false negatives, which means the searcher might not detect the target, but it was in fact there. As I mentioned before, there are 2 kinds of team coordination, explicit and implicit. So what explicit coordination means? It means we are trying to plan multiple paths at the same time, which, as you can imagine, require a very large search tree that in fact grows exponentially as you increase the team size and planning horizon. This is not very practical for implementation. That's why the current state of the art for this problem is implicit coordination with a receding horizon approach, as proposed by Hollinger. This means you plan for one robot assuming the others are still, then you plan for the next, always assuming the other robots will either stay still or follow the computed plan. This is what it looks like. Suppose we want to plan the path for 3 searchers. For explicit coordination, we need a centralizing planning approach. So we can search paths for all searches at the same time until we find our desired solution. With the implicit approach, on the other hand, we first explore the search tree for the first searcher, then we treat it as a constant and search the options for the second searcher, doing the same for the third searcher until all paths have been computed. The thing is that the current state of the art uses brute force path enumeration, which also takes some time. That's where the MILP models come in. We now can take advantage of the solver's heuristics, branch and bound algorithms, and other techniques to solve our problem. To test our formulation, we chose 3 environments. The office and museum were actually used when presenting the current state of the art, so we wanted to use them for comparison. We also added a 10 by 10 grid for a more challenging scenario. We did a bunch of experiments with different configurations, but let's focus on the simple model with same vertex capture and no false negatives applied to office and museum, and the more complete model with a chosen capture range of 1 hop neighbor, which means searcher can see their neighboring vertices, and they have a 30% detection uncertainty, and this model was applied to the grid environment. To analyze MILP scalability, we compared the centralized and distributed approaches with a planning horizon of 10 time steps. As you can see here, even for the simplest model, as you increase the team size, the solver starts to take too long to find an optimal solution and reaches our cutoff of 30 minutes. Meanwhile, you can find solutions using the distributed approach in under 4 seconds. The same is true for the more complex environment that reaches the cutoff with only 2 searchers in the centralized approach, but is able to find solutions under 40 seconds for 5 searchers. So it's clear that the distributed approach is faster. But does it have similar performance? What we found out is that yes, the collected reward of the distributed approach was within 3% of the centralized one. And the average mission time, either if the target was captured or deadline reached, was also similar, within 6%. But our most promising result is that with the MILP models, we were able to compute solutions 90 times faster than with the current state of the art. We coded the path enumeration algorithm and compared it with the MILP models in a distributed fashion. And you can see here the huge difference in runtime for all environments tested. This means we can plan for longer planning horizons and larger team sizes in online applications. So the adoption of MILP as a planning paradigm allows for a fast and scalable probabilistic search approach. We presented here centralized and distributed solutions for an NP hard problem, and we refer you to our paper for the NP hardness proof. We achieved 98.8% decrease in runtime compared to current state of the art. We also presented the first MILP model able to encompass multiple searchers, arbitrary capture ranges, and false negatives simultaneously. And it's worth mentioning that it's also expandable by additional constraints. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the NSF funding that made this research possible, my lab, the Autonomous Systems Lab, directed by Professor Mark Campbell, and Cornell University. I leave here my email, so if anyone has any further questions, feel free to contact me. And our code, both the MILP models and path enumeration approaches, are open source and available on GitHub. Thank you.